Hello, our friends, Evolutionary Energy Arts, HEEARTS, Heart's Home Family, Patrons, everybody.
Hello, everybody.
Welcome, guys. It is a gorgeous, albeit a little bit cool day.
It is. It is. It's a beautiful but cold day, so I'm out here because, well, I need the sun, but I'm bundled. I'm definitely bundled. It's cold. It's cold.
Yeah, Cindy is totally bundled up. I think it's wonderful. And it's been a practice of mine for a long time, going back to the 80s.
Bundling up.
No, to go out and meditate when it's really cold,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
try to get to the point where I was meditating with, just shorts on in 30-degree weather or 20-degree weather, just to kind of overcome the elements. Used to do that just to push yourself and to test the mind, and it's all about testing the mind, so to speak. It's really about developing awareness of exactly who we are.
Well, I think it's about, separating you from the mind, separating you from the body. So if you can have these bodily discomforts with being in the cold and you're able to find a place where you're at peace and you're okay with that, well, then you successfully separated your mind from your body and you're starting to realize that, hey, I am not this mind. I am not this body. I am something different. But the one thing for sure is I am.
I am, but what is the I?
What is the I?
Yeah, exactly. And that's what we want to get into. This is a practice which is developed from the Yoga Sutras of Patanjali, ancient knowledge and wisdom that's passed on that uh, even if you just read it superficially, there's so much there, and yet it really needs to be digested slowly in small little pieces.
Well, I like this book. And if you can just read and understand the one book one, then basically book one explains all the other books in it. So it is that meditative state and being able to grasp something and having those aha moments. It's expansion. It's what we came here to do. So many times we ask ourselves, why did I do this? What am I here for? But you are an amazing being. You're an amazing creature. You have so many gifts and so many talents, and we have not been shown not one of them. But a lot of these teachings, they help us explain how our bodies work, how our minds work, how and who we are. So it really helps. To me, it brings peace when I'm able to have an aha moment.
Yeah, and I think this is akin to, in some ways, it's like studying quantum physics or rocket science or whatever you want to put up there as being something that takes a lot of work, effort, thought. It's an absolutely no way um, something that is very, very simple, and yet it is perhaps the most simplest thing of all, in the sense of exactly what am I? Who am I? I mean, you might just say, who are you? Well, whoever the case is, you might first state your profession, or you might say, I'm a mom, or I'm a dad, or whatever it is. We have these versions of ourselves, but that's not the true self. That's, again, this particular embodiment, and is what we would call the ego, the small self. Again, who
Mhm.
is the big self? Well, most people don't have a clue. They don't even really understand the concept, unfortunately, in the Western world.
And they're because I think most people are so busy or they've been traumatized to such a high degree, they have not had a chance to even stop and sit and contemplate this information. But once you do, it really is fulfilling. It's like at a certain point in our lives, I would say that like the first Saturn return, usually people start to contemplate, who am I? What is this all about? And the practices that Mike and I do, this brings about a certain energy within ourselves that's very, very fulfilling. And we understand who we are, what we are capable of. We understand a lot of the mysteries of the universe. It just kind of gets you past that veil.
Yeah, absolutely. And if you read the Yoga Sutras, um, when you read them, they're going to feel kind of probably different. There's a lot of different translations out there. They're not going to be what you're used to, probably, unless you've already studied them. But what is yoga? It's been stated that yoga is union. In Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, the first sutra is Atha Anusasanam, which just basically means now the exposition of yoga is being made. Now we're going to explain what yoga is, so to speak. That's the first Yoga Sutra. It's a philosophy in a way. It's explaining the science of embodiment. And what does embodiment mean? Really, we are again a consciousness that is temporarily embodied as a human being, but that's temporary. We are beyond that, and that's the thing that yoga shows is, yeah, you are the union of a spirit body mind complex, yet you are so much more than just even this one embodiment.
And I think a lot of this is people are very, very uncomfortable in their skin. There's a lot of trauma, there's a lot of thought, and it's about, how do I control this mind? How do I control these thoughts? How do I control all of this pain inside of me? How do I manage it? Because over time, we really create some like super pathways in the mind to beat ourselves up and to really give ourselves grief. And laying in bed and trying to, you don't even try, you just think of all the problems that have been going on over the last year, and that's all you think about is just problems, 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 problems. Well, how do you separate yourself from that, and find peace?
Yes, exactly. So the second sutra is Yoga Siddha Vritti Nirodha, which basically means the restraint and the modifications of the mind is yoga. So when we talk about the mind, and this is really the focus that I wanted for this particular one, there is a saying to be meditated upon, and that is simply you just say over in your mind, I am not the body, I am not even the mind. I am not the body, I am not even the mind. And just repeat that as a mantra. And it could be something that you have as your meditative foundation or root practice. Bija is root in Sanskrit. That could be something that you have for weeks, days, weeks, months, again, years, or always even. It's just a foundational practice that can lead to realization. That's the difference here. It's just like the Gnostics. What's Gnosticism? It's knowing, but it's experiential. It's something that you experience. You don't just simply go on what other people have said. You have to experience it yourself. And that's what, yoga is all about.
So, in this world that we live in, the mind is really in a state of non coherence. It's extremely chaotic. It's in a place where so many of us are probably in fight or flight from the time we get up to the time we go to bed. And with the body, with animals and humans, we are okay to hop into a state of flight every now and then, and the body will go and it'll return back to normal. Unfortunately, for the world that we live in today, the chaos that we live in, and the trauma that so many have experienced, you get stuck in this flight. You get stuck in this state where the body is just in such a panic. Think of yourself as a scared rabbit. And after a while, when these chemicals are going and going and going throughout the body, they start to deteriorate the body and give you rapid aging. And it's really bad. And then a lot of diseases come along, and then you end up going to the DR and they try to give you a band aid, and it's just not working. It is absolutely not working for the majority of people that go to a DR. That starts this never ending cascade. And pretty soon they're looking at their calendars, what do I do this week? Oh, I have 3 doctor's appointments, and that's normal, but it's not normal. That's not normal. And there is another way to live. If you can learn how to put the brain in theta, you can actually bring peace to yourself. You can call all the pieces and parts of you back, and you can begin to heal. And you can also begin to separate yourself from this state of flight, from all the emotions, and just go into a state of being. And I always like to say, we are not human doings, we are human beings. So that is our natural state. And the more we can come to that and have the mind behave and be quiet. And it's not about forcing yourself not to think. No, we're it's about calming the brain down so that naturally we're in that state, that we're not going over all the things that are going wrong in our lives. And that takes some practice, but once you start on this journey, it gets nothing but better and better, and you learn new tips and new tricks, and you learn ways to help yourself find that center of peace, because once you create that pathway once through yoga, through meditation, through the modalities we're talking about today, once you create that once, you now have a bridge and you can keep going back. And every time you go back to that place where you say your brain is in theta and your heart and your mind are in coherence with each other, you are starting to heal. You have a bridge. You can walk across that bridge anytime you want, and it gets stronger and stronger and stronger. So that's what we want to bring up today.
Yeah, absolutely. It's a case of calming and stilling. And again, sometimes Cindy will get messages that override her conscious mind. She's unique in a Kali Yuga. She's extremely unique. In a Bronze Age, even at this point in the Bronze Age, she's still unique. But as we go deeper in, we will all be getting these messages clearer and clearer. And so using techniques, mindfulness techniques like we see in yoga, and those given to us in the Yoga Sutras, can really make it so we could hear those other beings that are there literally coaching us and ready to teach us. Again, we are in an infinite ocean of consciousness. This is one ocean. It's our own internal noise that keeps us from hearing what's happening in the rest of this ocean.
Oh, the internal noise is huge, and it's been given to us from a time of birth. If you think about it, when you're born, that's traumatic. That's really traumatic, uh, and that can have effects on the human body. When I was learning about biofield tuning, that is one of the biggest things when there is a traumatic birth and people go through life. And let's say life isn't that bad, but they have all these health problems. They have all of these emotional problems, even though there wasn't a lot of trauma, and they don't really understand. It's like, why am I falling apart? I take good care of myself. I do all the things. But if you actually go back and look at their birth, if they had a traumatic birth, that is going to distort their energy right out the gate. And that's why I really loved the tuning, is because you can help that person find the mind and the heart coherence in a way where they can start to undo that from the time of birth. But you do have to go back. It takes a little bit of work, but it's doable. And people reach a point, I think, in their minds where they're so haunted by all of these thoughts, these unnecessary traumas. They're willing to do just about everything. So people find the answers in energy. They find the answers in energy. And it's like, how do I get my mind and my heart to work together? How do I do this? And what we're talking about today is one of them.
Yeah, and there's different techniques. There's what has been broken down and called the Western technique versus the Eastern technique in very simplified terms. When you look to some Western traditions, there's very, very intricate rituals involved to get us into a certain state of mind. In the East, yeah, sitting down and getting into a point of inactivity in the mind, into a state where you're more receptive, is something that's commonly practiced. Again, we could use whatever technique we want to. If we want to focus in on an object and just meditate on, say, a candle flickering and becoming one with the flame, that's fine. If you want to follow your breath, that's one of the first things that's usually taught. That's fine. That's another technique that can be very, very useful. Focusing on a mantra again can be wonderful. Again, like such we were giving, I am not the body, I am not even the mind. And going beyond that, who are you then? Well, you're the observer. Ultimately, you're the one that's watching this observer objectively, instead of you being the subject of the life, subjectively being exposed to all the conditions that the body has and goes through. So when we are in fight or flight, for instance, it's almost impossible to be really receptive to outside communications coming in from our guides, because we are so in the moment. And this is the way nature has built within us this hormone release where, it's a heightened state of awareness, but it's an embodied heightened state of awareness. So what we try to do in the practice of meditation and yoga, it's controlling the consciousness of the mind at will, which takes practice. And so don't get upset with yourself. Don't say, oh God, I can never still my mind. It's always going, a million miles an hour. That's natural. Again, you might be sitting down at the same time. You're trying to maintain a stillness, and yet, what's going on? Well, I got to go back to work Monday and I forgot this or I forgot that, or school with a test, whatever it is. There's things that are pressing, relatives coming over, all these things bopping into your head and pulling you away. So it's overcoming those type of things through a practice where you can get in touch really with your higher self too.
Mhm. And, for me, it is about finding that third person observing whenever something is upsetting me. It does help to step out and become that observer because, from the standpoint of when I'm sitting in the problem, I get very frustrated at myself. I really don't have too many nice things to say about myself because I'm the one who put me there. But if I step out and become the observer and look at what I'm doing, I'm actually doing really good, and I'm able to say, "Hey, you are doing good. Don't give yourself a hard time." And if you have trouble being the observer for yourself, think about your friend. How would you treat your friend in that situation? What would you say to them? And it is a very normal thing for the mind to race, and it's very difficult to just sit down and try to learn to meditate. But those couple of things, it's like you have to give the brain something to do. You need to give it a job. The brain is just a monkey mind. It goes, and if it doesn't have a job, like breathing or counting breath or staring at a candle, those are the things that can start to calm the mind. You give the mind something to do. And once you give the mind instructions, then you're able to start to walk around and around the mind and kind of get away from all of those thoughts and feelings that are preventing you from moving into a state of mind heart coherence.
A practice like Qigong, for instance, or yoga, is a good practice for somebody that has a hard time
Sita.
stilling the mind without having a million things going on. So sometimes moving meditation can be one of the best forms of meditation. And, that is one of our pretty much daily practices. We always do mantras to first bring in the right energies, and then follow that with a still meditation in a receptive state. Typically, mantras are done often in a call and response manner, whether we are, with others at a kirtan doing mantras in which somebody's leading and they put out the mantra first and then you repeat it. It's the same sort of thing with our consciousness when we're sitting there doing mantras. We are putting that out into the universe and then we pause and we are still and we go into a receptive state and we see what comes back to us. Don't hold expectations. Try to hold no expectations. Just simply be in a receptive state. And you may start to get answers that will be like all of a sudden somebody might be speaking to you and you might think, well, is that my mind giving me this thought? Where's that coming from? Or it could be again like pictures, it could be a scene, it could be like watching a movie per se.
And I would say in the very beginning, the most common response is just nothing. And
Mhm.
people wonder, well, isn't there something supposed to happen? Now, what's supposed to happen? Well, sometimes this can take a really long time of doing these meditations before anything really does happen because we have healing to do. We need to teach the mind to slow down. We need to teach the mind to find a space of peace. And that takes a long time. So, before you beat yourself up, just don't forget it took a long time for you to get to the spot where you're at, where you just absolutely have to do something because you're so upset or you're so broken or you're so scattered or you're so shattered. It took many years to get there. It's going to take some time to start to heal those wounds. And it's that sitting and being quiet in that time is when you're starting to call back your energies. It's like you're able to bring the fragments that were so shattered back and put them in your soul when you're able to sit and be quiet just for a little bit. And I think candle, like in the very, very, very beginning, candle is a really good one. And even if you can get just a picture of a candle, you want a focus, but you don't want to over focus, but you need to give the monkey mind something to do. You need to say, hey, this is your job here and I'm over here. And that way you start to understand that there is a separation between the mind and you.
The ultimate reality is that there's one ocean of consciousness of which we are a part. And when we are in that state, it's a state of bliss. And Ananda is the Sanskrit word for bliss. One of my favorite mantras is the Mula mantra, Om Sat Chit Ananda. So Chit refers to the mind, and so it's again bringing your mind back to that original state of bliss. And you could take whatever resonates. So if you didn't want to do the full mula, you could even just do that. Hari is a reference to Vishnu, the creator of this universe, and Hari Om Tat Sat is basically saying that you are in alignment with or of the same stuff as Vishnu. And so when you're saying that, you're kind of asking for the blessing of pulling in the energies of the creator into you so that you could be more like the creator, so that you can embody more of the attributes of the creator.
So there's a lot that we can do with ourselves. And it's kind of a land where we go and we explore and we give ourselves grace and we give ourselves time and patience and we allow ourselves to be still so that we can regain some of that chaotic energy that has been lost to us from so many chaotic days and so many traumatizing experiences, so much stress. This world is not cut out for a human being. The dark matrix is kind of taking it over. And because of the chaos, they're able to control us, but it doesn't have to be that way. Once we start to bring healing and peace to our mind and our soul, then that's when things start to change for us. And people have really amazing things happen in their life once they're able to find that mind heart coherence.
Absolutely. Again, we were talking subjective and objective. With the realization that you're not your body, you're not even your mind, you're in fact beyond that. You're having this experience as whatever your particular situation is in this world, of which you can again modify it kind of at will to certain degrees through our intention. You're having this experience as, Jane Doe or whatever, housewife from Chicago, you name it. But that's just a temporary experience. It's not the real you, because you may have also been a plumber from Miami. You could have been an architect from somewhere in Italy. You could have, done all sorts of things throughout time and have many, many different embodiments. I think, again, one of the best exercises for people trying to grasp exactly all these concepts and also connect to the higher self and their guides is to write down their dreams and go beyond that too. When you are doing your meditative practices, write down what your impressions afterwards. Either write down or just use a voice recorder, on your phone or what have you. As a million birds are coming in now, we get this a lot when we get into these states of beings. It draws all the birds close to us, and we had like probably 500 birds in the front yard the other day,
Hmm.
because again they can feel the change in consciousness, and they want to be by the more blissful energies, and that is our natural state of being, is a blissful state of being. Om Sat Chit Ananda. It's what we can tie into at any time if we just start to do the work and the exercise of calming and stilling the mind. And again, that mantra is one that you can run with if it resonates.
Right. And you can train the mind to release certain chemicals immediately to help you calm down, but you have to show it how. You have to show it, what does that look like? What does it take to settle that mind down? So it takes some time, but I think the human body and the human mind is just absolutely amazing, and the things that we can do are, I don't know, just incredible, incredible if we just give ourselves the time.
Absolutely. The real you lies beyond this natural and also the artificial matrix. So you are way more powerful than you've ever probably been told.
Indeed.
As always, guys, thanks for your support. Source bless and namaste.
Namaste.